Most of us have tons of pattern paper. Maybe we bought it because we loved it. Maybe we bought the book because, well, we thought it was a good idea. And maybe we've got tons of scraps that now we're buried in. So let's reinvent this pattern paper and use it. Let's get crafting. Using that pattern paper was a great idea at the beginning to create your backgrounds. But let's face it, as you continue your card making journey, it gets boring and we need to do something else. Let's add ink to your papers. My first example is using this Christmas Thinlit called Holiday Brushstroke number 3. No, I'm not making a Christmas card, and I don't care that it's a poinsettia. I'm going to make it what I want. And I'm going to use Mowed Lawn, Bundled Sage, and Forest Moss, along with Salvage Patina, Mermaid Lagoon, and Uncharted Mariner. And this is some watercolor cardstock and a distress sprayer. So if you've got a mister, that works too. So for the very first piece, I'm going to make this blue because, well, I want a blue flower. I don't care if it's realistic or not. That's what I want. So that's what I'm going to go with. All right, so I'm going to get some color on this cardstock in a fast way. And this is just one way that you can do it. And smush, smush, smush. Yes, I need to re-ink those ink pads. Adding some generous water and an ink brush, and I'm just going to smear it around because I want to get the color on fast. Now remember, wet on wet blends, wet on dry layers. So I've blended my first layer because I wanted a blue background, and I'm just using my heat gun to get that dried off quickly because, well, I'm being impatient today. Now, I don't want a solid color flower. I want something that's got some depth and some texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and put down, I think this was Uncharted Mariner, and I've added some water, and that's Mermaid Lagoon, I believe. Add some more water. And now I'm just going to kind of run my fingers through it, I think, because I do have blue fingers. Yep, there they are. Okay, and now I'm just going to dab my cardstock right into that little puddle of water and ink. And honestly, I really love playing in ink. And don't be afraid of getting your hands a little dirty. It comes off with a little blue dawn. It's wash a few dishes and it's good. Now, you'll see that I got some splotches, which is exactly the look that I was going for. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that because I want those to stay put. Just continue to play until you get the look that you desire. Now I've added some more Uncharted Mariner because I want some more of those dark flecks. And remember, I'm going to be making a flower out of this ultimately, so I want some variegation. And well, now I'm getting there, but it still didn't have enough. So now I'm going to add some Rusty Hinge, and I'm putting some on a very small block. And I'm just going to add some water to the block and use a fan brush. Now, the reason I did this was I wanted to have a little bit more control over where that was going. And orange and blue look great together, and it's going to add a lot of interest to that flower. Switching gears, I'm heading over to the green. And I've pretty much done the exact same thing, except for I decided to leave the creamy off-white color of the watercolor cardstock for the background. I wanted some of that white to kind of pop through, but I'm using those 3 colors of green to get some texture. Same thing, dry between so that you get those little bubbles. Except I'm going to change this one up, and this time I'm going to add a little red. Green and red look good together. This is Crackling Campfire. And this time I'm just going to do a little light splatter. Nothing major, just enough to get a little color on the cardstock. In full Wendy fashion, I wasn't satisfied. Not enough color for me. So this time I did a little ink smushing with the same Crackling Campfire. You could have stopped where you were before if you liked the look. This time I also added some water splashes because, well, we needed to. And here we go. This is what it looks like, and we're going to go ahead and do some die cutting. Stop here and just glue my cardstock onto my card panels. and leave them flat, but I decided I wanted my flowers to have a little shape. Now you could do that by layering cardstock petals, just do an extra die cut if you wanted to, and layer them. But I've wet my fingers and wet the back of my cardstock. And the reason I did that was once I shape my petals, which I'm just doing with a paintbrush handle, and that cardstock dries, then it tends to hold the shape better than if I just shaped dry cardstock. Now, you could use a foam mat and a shaping tool. That would also work. I was just lazy, so I just grabbed a paintbrush and a little bit of water, and away we go. Now, quick tip here. If you decide to wet the back of your cardstock and your fingers are wet, remember, if you're using oxides, you're using a water reactive ink, and that blue ink will transfer to your fingers and come off of your cardstock. So just be aware of that. So this yellow and white gingham pattern is what I've decided to use for my pattern piece here. And it's kind of flat, isn't it? It's a good size piece of scrap from that cardstock, but it just doesn't do it any good. So I'm going to use some mustard seed, and I'm going to cover this entire piece of cardstock with yellow mustard seed Distress Oxide ink. Just blend that bad boy right on. We're going to dull down some of the white of the gingham and bring up that darker yellow color in the gingham. And we've got one other step for this, but it's as simple as adding ink to change your pattern papers. We're doing some basic ink blending. Let's add some Rusty Hinge. Remember, we added that to the flower, so it's a good tie back into the cardstock panel that we're going to layer that onto. And I'm just going to do my edges. Here's an example of the plain pattern piece of paper with dull, flat poinsettias and a little bit of ink on the pattern paper. Look at the difference that adding some volume, adding that additional ink to the card panel has made. It truly is a metamorphosis of that pattern paper. Let's use a layering stencil. Now this is the Spellbinders Layered Sunflower Blooms stencil. Now, it doesn't have any instructions except for the picture on the back, so we're going to wing it. And I'm going to cover over this white and brown polka dotted cardstock. Again, it's rather flat. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't have any oomph to it. So we're going to give it some. Once again, I'm relying on my trusty Distress Oxides in Mustard Seed, Twisted Citron, Fossilized Amber, and Peeled Paint. Now, of course, the sky is the limit here. If you have regular stencils, you could certainly use texture pastes. You could color your texture paste. You could add glitter to your texture paste. Anything to get some coverage over the paper that you are using. This is just one of many, many ideas. Now, stay tuned because I also got some new goodies in the mail, and I want to share that with you because there's some pretty cool stuff in there, and I'm going to use them as well. Now, I'm not sure if this particular stencil is still available. Anything that I am showing you in the video, I will try to link down below if you just want to take a closer look at the products. I got this at the Spellbinders clearance sale, so I'm not sure if it's still available or not. It was a pretty good price point, and I don't have but maybe 2 other layering stencils, so I just couldn't resist it. And I figured I can change the colors. It doesn't have to be a sunflower. I can make this anything that I want to. After stenciling, I've cut it down, but it's still boring and needs something else. So I'm taking the exact same piece of cardstock and I'm going to add some walnut stain and ink up the edges. If you have cardstock that you don't like or that you just need to use up, you can certainly ink up the edges, or you could even use it for layers. This is a far cry from plain old polka dot paper. Last week, scrapbook.com had 4 freebies at the time when I purchased these, and I was so excited because I got my hands on all 12 of the brand new Tim Holtz Distress spritzes, and they are pretty cool. If you love pearlescence, this is the product for you. I love everything to have that pearly shine to it, and for it to match my distress products, way to go. So I also got some slimline envelopes that were on sale. These are free, or were at the time. This was Beehive by SIZZIX. Summertime Icons. I got Pink Fresh Studios Foiled Vellum Floral Ephemera Set. And the fourth freebie was a pair of Scrapbook.com's ergonomic scissors. 4 items for free. Y'all, that's just unheard of. I know I sent an email about that because I definitely want to keep you guys in the know anytime that they're offering fantastic freebies. They always offer at least one, but 4 is pretty unheard of. And it gave me the opportunity to go ahead and get all of these distress spritz that I was so looking forward to. So while I'm checking out my scissors here, distress spritz is a way of adding the distress color to pearl. So it's suspended in a clear liquid and the color of the pearl is matching to the distress color. And that's kind of killer. And here's what else. You know how distress products are water reactive? Well, guess what? This doesn't react with the water. There's no bleeding or wicking with this product. It just is a finisher and it lays across the top. But there's a lot that you can do with it. And trust me, I'm just getting to the start of it. I also got the last 5 colors I needed for the Distress ink mini cubes that I have. I got Crackling Campfire, Prize Ribbon, Rustic Wilderness, Saltwater Taffy, and Villainous Potion. So I don't have all the mini cubes for the Distress inks. I like them. I love the colors, but I really like my oxides. If I need something that's translucent, then I go with my dye inks, which are my Distress inks. And I have a few from Simon Hurley and a few pigment inks, but mainly I use my Distress hybrid inks. Next up, let's change the texture of our pattern papers. Here's my pattern paper, which is pretty nifty, but I'm not into the red so much, so I'm going to make it pearlescent, so I do like it. And this is just one of the Tim Holtz backdrops, along with the new Distress Spritz in Barn Door, and the Spellbinders 3D embossing folder, which is also new. I have waited for this one forever. It's called Tufted, and I have run that through my die cutter. I absolutely love this folder. So we're going to take this up a little bit by using our brand new die cut. This is a SIZZIX Thinlit called Beehive. Now this was a freebie. And my bees, I'm going to use that vellum. Now this is a leftover piece of vellum that I added foundry wax to. So if you haven't seen my vellum video, I will link it up above for you. I've already die cut all the pieces. These are the bees, the little wings, all their little stripes. And it's kind of a twofer because you have to cut out a black and you have to cut out a yellow or 2 different colors if you want the stripes. So you get a yellow bug with black stripes or a black bug with yellow stripes. Now I'm using my trusty liquid glue for this, and it only takes just a little dab. This is my absolute favorite glue, and really the only liquid glue I use anymore. It's called Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. And guys, it lasts forever. I'm still on my original bottle, if you can believe it or not. Now to hold those little fiddly bits together while they dry for just a second, I am using those reverse tweezers. This was also a freebie ages ago, and I love them for holding those parts together and giving me an extra set of hands when I desperately need it. With my bees complete, I am using a block to hold down the
B, just to get it to grip from the glue. And I'm going to go ahead and work on the honeycomb. Now, I have already cut out the honeycomb piece, and I'm not going to use all the pieces because I don't want to cover up all that beautiful backdrop. But using my silicone mat, that's going to really hold these little hexagonal pieces on here. And I'm just going to go ahead and give them a quick swipe. I think I used 6 or 7 of the hexagons, but it doesn't matter. You could use all of them if you wanted, or just some of them. I am going to mix up the inks though, because once again, I want them to have some depth. Depth and texture is where it's at. You don't want it to look so flat. Now this one, I started out with mustard seed. This one is fossilized amber. It is a little bit darker yellow, as you can tell. And I'm going to speed this up just a little bit and meet you at the end. Now, sadly, I did lose some of the footage, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and add my backdrop to my card base. I use Accent Opaque 100-pound cardstock for my card bases. And I did take the Distress Spritz and I sprayed the top as a finisher of my backdrop, so it has a lovely red sheen to it, and it really accents the golds that are in that cardstock. Here I'm just going to adhere down my honeycomb, and then I'm going to add the pieces. Now the pieces of the honeycomb, I told you I'm not going to do all of them because I don't want to cover up the beautiful backdrop, but I also used the Fossilized Amber Distress Spritz for those pieces. I used all the same color for those because that's the only yellow they have, but I used ink for my distinguishing feature. I used mustard seed for the light one and fossilized amber for the darker one, but then I also touched around the edges with some rusty hinge before giving them a spritz. Now I did a heavier layer of spritz of the honeycomb because I really wanted them to have some shine. That stuff is gorgeous. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that. Really wanted to show you the texture and the shine. You could see the little red specks as they sit on top of the cardstock. And then of course you cannot miss the Distress Spritz of the fossilized amber in the honeycomb. But I think it is just spectacular. And here's a final look at that card. Now I've picked out a couple of other videos that I think you'll really enjoy. Until next time, I'll see you real soon.